Hey guys, it's Matt. Just some clarifications about yesterday's video. I'll ask you this topic or this concept of egregore. Where maybe am I missing something? Where am I getting it right? Where am I getting it wrong? Is there anybody out there listening to me that believes these things don't exist? Now, I have no personal experience with an egregore, of course, but in observing reality and how Western culture works, the entire society is set up to extract energy. It's just obvious. Everything is to pile on to the masses and the populations, at least how many ever real people there are here. Stress, worry, anxiety, fear, anger, jealousy, the seven deadly sins. It's all set up for this. If something isn't able to extract this negative energy from negative or harmful emotions, then what's it all set up this way for? And I've never bumped into an egregore that I know of. I never walked around the corner. I'm sorry, did I? Oh, I never saw one. Matt, they're all around. Yeah, they probably are. Every time you go into the DMV, the drivers, the motor vehicle center, there's an egregore. Matt, have you ever been to the post office? It has its own egregore. People believe that there's an egregore associated with each what presents itself as a corporation, or the Pentagon, for example, has its own egregore. The Department of Defense. Or Matt, you bump into these things all the time. Maybe we do, but look, I don't. I'm not aware of it. I don't want to be. I don't want to bump into one. But the whole society, reality, and culture is set up to create the negative energy, to create the fear and the worry that something's going to happen, or this is going to happen, and they're going to do this, and they do it right in our own truth community. Oh, reset, and this is going to happen next week, and this. You know how many emails I get with predictions that never come true? It's to create the emotion, and something must harvest it. Of course, that's the whole concept of the egregore. I don't know how this thing, not milk, harvests it, but it makes sense. It would have to be an extension of itself, or something like on the ground, or at the Rolling Stones concert. The egregore, people would say, was associated with the rock band, the Rolling Stones. And people freely and willingly turn over their energy to Mick Jagger or Walking Death, Keith Richards, or whatever. And it's almost like the way I envision it could be. Again, like something on the ground locally, a local foot soldier, the way that takes the energy it needs, but then also maybe passes a bit of it back to not milk. That was what was presented in the video yesterday. I had a line or two about the frat taking what it needs, but then sharing what's left in terms of the energy it collects, or the negative emotions, with the collective, or with its own collective, which I call not milk, which is the term for the highest box on the org chart. So, is there anybody out there that thinks these things don't exist? Again, no personal experience with one, but they would have to exist, because again, all of Western society is set up to create this negative emotion and anger and fear and etc. and worry and stress. And then, well, what's it all created for? Just goes up into outer space. Something must take it. So I'm not particularly interested in knowing exactly how it works. All we can do is turn off our own spigot. For 30 years, I thought that word was spigot. Now I know it's spigot. Whatever. We have to turn it off, whatever it is. Oh, we're good at that now at this point. We are. We say, oh, this news story, this is ridiculous. This is cake in a lake bullshit. It's out to take something from me, or get me to act in a certain way, or put certain emotions or out into or frequency or resonance out into the ether. And it's all up to us. I'm not going to do it. I can't stop what my cousin does or what my neighbor does. If they want to talk to me about it, I'll engage with them, but I'm not going to go push them on it anymore, push it on them. And I could just turn off my own spigot. But there's, I of course, 15% of yesterday's analogy about the egregore and the fraternity, 15% was fiction, made up, embellished, and I don't even think it, but 85%, of course, I believe in. The core of it, of course, is I think this is how it works, and if you want to go through the elements, and if you think I got a certain element wrong, tell me in the comments. But I said something in the video yesterday that the egregores, via the introduction of the internet, they've now found a way to communicate with each other via the internet. Obviously, I have no evidence of that. I just made that up, but I'm sure. But there's some sort of like weird truth to it too. Many of you, I know, the old guard are like, well, Matt, the internet is involved in some way. Of course, it is, Czar. The internet is responsible in some way for, facilitating the chaos and the horrible aspects of society that we don't like. Of course, the internet is involved. So, but I don't, in the video yesterday, the egregore is using it to communicate, and I made that up. They could be. I know. I hear you. Some of the old guys, well, Matt, they could be. But okay, but it's just pure speculation. What's up, Czar? So, I mean, in terms of the analogy with the evil frat, the main takeaway from it, and I hope it was clear, whether we disagree on how these egregores work or what exactly an egregore is or not, is that it has the most influence and control over, in yesterday's video, those brothers or those people in the membership in its own fraternity, or those that willingly engage with it, willingly turn themselves over to it, give themselves up to it, covet its rewards and its lifestyle, define themselves by it. It's, to me, all those actions, you could, the brothers proudly wearing their I think I originally said new Omega Tau, but that wouldn't be O. Did I get that right? Is it Omicron? Is that the O? Oh, she just clawed me because she slipped. Those that wear their colors and wave their flags and wear the knot name proudly and define themselves by it are going to be, if this egregore exists, they're giving themselves over to it, going to be under its influence. That's the case with anything. Those that go off to their job at the gigantic drug company and believe in every bit of what they're doing and don't think for a second why there hasn't been a cure for the 100 years it's been in existence, and whatever the egregore is associated with whatever these massive drug companies, people do believe. Go watch the movie Branded. The movie Branded, very visually showed you that there was, that it showed one, if I remember correctly, it's been a long time, one guy was able to see it, the gigantic egregore, some sort of, but it was depicted like a gigantic float in the Macy's Day Parade, or like a giant clown, was over top McDonald's, was over top Burger King, was over top Home Depot, and I think only one person could see it. Was that the premise? And they go into the boardroom where the board of directors, a represented corporation, and the board of directors aren't even aware, but the egregore is right behind them, in some way extracting energy. And I don't know exactly how this works, but there's a lot of truth to it, because if we don't know anything else, the whole reality is set up to extract energy. So those, at least in yesterday's video, in the fraternity that bowed down to it and turned themselves over to it, they took their own armor off. Then this thing, whatever it is, if you don't like the on-the-ground term, a local egregore, then Not Milk itself, it wielded influence, wielded the download. I think the download goes along with it, hand in hand. That those that that love the rewards of this culture and this society are going to be more susceptible to the download, whatever that means to us. I've seen instances where it is literally like a download, especially regarding Mandela effect issues, but we won't stray too much on that. People want to see Zara. So the other thing about, and I'm not sure how much I alluded to this in yesterday's video, those brothers in the fraternity that just saw it for what it was, a fraternity, but in a way, without being truthers or investigating, they kept their armor up. All right, Zara, that's it for you. They kept their armor on without, knowing there's an evil egregore associated with the fraternity. They just were too strong spiritually. Maybe they had a faith in their religion or whatever it may be. But there's always going to be brothers that the egregore, at least in this example yesterday of the fraternity, can't get to. And it will try to corrupt and destroy as much as possible, but there's always going to be very strong spiritual beings it just can't get to. Now, it's not going to help them rise to the top. It's going to identify, I think, I don't know how I alluded to it yesterday, but the Bill Clinton types, whatever egregore is associated with whatever, whatever layer of the org chart, something like Bill Clinton came through, whether he was given the Rhodes Scholarship, the Cecil Rhodes Scholarship, by the way. Certain types of entities that are going to play ball with it or serve it, I think, are identified. Who knows how the Not-Nilk identifies them? I mean, does it use its egregores or whatever? But in yesterday's video, the fraternity would have identified immediately those that are going to serve it and can continue to serve it in positions of power later on as corporate CEOs or senators in Congress, etc. The Bill Clinton types. Someone like Tony. There are two Tonys. One's my friend that believes CNN, and one is Tony that had a commune with his higher self. I mean, Tony would say, Matt, it doesn't have to identify. It doesn't have to try to identify. It's a different type of entity. You've heard me talk about it many times. It's a sequential incarnation where he called us simultaneous incarnations of higher self. It knows its own type. It knows its own Not-Nilk serve. It's sequential. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly how that worked. But either way, whatever the egregore that was presented in yesterday's video associated with the fraternity would identify those that are real spiritual beings that could be a problem for it, and those that will immediately serve it, and those that it could push on and put into government or into corporate life later. All of these things, potentially working for Not-Nilk. How does something like Chuck Schumer get into that position? I assure you, it's just not good people running for office, trying their best. He just went bad. No, that type of thing it's either what Tony says, that different type of incarnation, or it was identified very early on by whatever local egregore it bumped up against, that this is something that has a degree of intelligence or whatever that will serve it, and will serve it loyally. I mean, most I can't. They're all if you get to the level of senator or something like that, they're all going to be of that ilk or of that litter. They're not going to. Well, Matt, Rand Paul's in there and he's a good guy. Oh yeah. Oh, okay, that's right. We got him working for us. And I mean, no, it's not. None of them are working for us. They're all working for Not-Nilk. Rand Paul, Ron Paul, and all the rest. But it's possible that it's not all this type of incarnation, that there are real people that go bad, or even the Not-Nilk using somebody that could have a certain idealism and just fooling them because they have to make a good showing, right? I'm not making excuses for Ron Paul and Rand Paul, of course not, but they have to make a good showing. They have to present another side. If everybody completely said the same exact thing in unison, even the dumbest of the dumb people around us might go, well, this political presentation isn't real. Maybe they have to put real people who are fooled in there from time to time. I think we've talked about many times, somebody like Alec Baldwin is probably one of these weird negative incarnations, but there are a lot of people in Hollywood, like we've talked about, in my opinion, that are the same as you and me, that just, that coveted its rewards, that just bowed down before it. Good people going under the dragon's wing. So it would make sense that it would put those types of real people, but ones that are completely fooled, into the political system to make it look good, to make it look like there are two sides. It's close to looking like professional wrestling. It's close to looking like Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant, but it's not, to us it does, because we see through everything at this point. But to the people around us, it's not exactly, we're not exactly there yet. It still has to make, I think it makes the showing it needs to make. It knows the level of perception or people's perceptions on the ship of fools. It matches. I think it matches its presentation to what they're going to buy or buy into or accept. It seems like a clown show to us, and to us it is a clown show across the board, not just politics, but its presentation of everything. A news story that it presents as being a conflict somewhere, and I mean, whether they're really people in the battle dying or not, we can see how false everything is, how cooked up everything is. But it needs to it matches its presentation to what it knows it can get away with, and because of the age of the internet, I was going to say, let me back up a second and continue that thought. Because of the age of the internet, it sees everybody's comments, reads everybody's emails, everybody's thumbs up, thumbs down. It knows how the collective population's going to react to something, to its cake in the lake event, before it even happens. And maybe the standard deviation on its accuracy was plus or minus 5% 15 years ago. And then it went to plus or minus 3%. Now it's like, I think it's literally, there almost isn't a plus or minus, in my opinion. I think it knows almost exactly how the population, not us, not little outliers, people that are, that have armor on, that, took the veil down and can see through all the bullshit. It doesn't, I think in many ways it can predict what the truth in general community is going to do, because I think most people in our community are still fooled. But let's just leave our group out of it. For the general population, it knows exactly how it's going to behave and react before it happens. So there is no standard deviation anymore, if that's the right term. I didn't understand most of my statistics class or wherever that came from. But I was saying it uses the internet, everybody's thumbs up, thumbs down comments. But, does it even need that anymore? I mean, if people are so in its frequency, in tune with its download, I'm not sure you would even need, those types of tools anymore to predict what the general population is going to do. So, point one, going back to yesterday's video, was: is there anybody that believes these things in general don't exist? Well, if you think they don't exist, do you agree that the whole society, Western culture, is set up to create this negative emotion and energy? If it is set up to create it and to generate anger, fear, stress, hate, worry, well, what's it doing all that for? It must have a way of harvesting it somehow. Even small distractions are all part of it. We're expecting longer than expected wait times. I mean, this sort of thing happens too often. That it's all set up in little micro steps to get under your skin. And then the hold music won't even be pleasant. It'll be some weird, would you press 1 to hold without music? But then there'll be clicking, click, click, click. So it's never right. It always gets under your skin when you're waiting for somebody to pick up. And I watched a video earlier this morning. I made the she was talking about, this person seems to be a fan of Walt Disney, if you can believe that exists. She was talking about her experience in this galactic hotel that went under. Disney spent billions of dollars on this hotel where you go in and have this immersive Star Wars experience, and then it completely went out of business and they lost billions. Well, she showed, one of the segments of her video was the cost, and it said it was 066.88, if I remember correctly. But it was just like our Not Milk, in a way, our Not Milk travel tours are much less expensive. It's only $666. Hers was $6,066, but it was just, what a coincidence. We make fun about the 666 on Not Milk travel tours. And her Disney, the Intergalactic Hotel was literally 666, just like we make fun of. I mean, come on, you can't make this shit up. And I wanted to comment to her, well, you're struggling to find reasons and trying to break down why it went out of business. It went out of business because the 3 sequel movies with Rey suck rocks. That's why it went out of business. I mean, you like those movies? She did seem to be a fan. I don't know how that's possible. Those movies I used to say, I'm not Matt. Don't turn this into Star Wars. Let's get back to the Egregore. Okay, I hear you. Those movies, I used to say, considering the legacy and the characters, they brought back Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher. They could have used Mark Hamill, which they did later. Considering all that, they're the worst movies of all time. Considering the tools they had access to. But you know what? They're so bad, even not considering all that, they're the worst movies of all time in my. Even if they came up and there was no Star Wars legacy, they were just new movies. They would rival wretched, horrible presentations like Rebel Moon. They're that bad. Anyway, I could do a whole channel just ripping the new Star Wars. It's so fascinating to me. Um, and even the people that are on our side, like some of the movie reviewers who are on our side, don't see that it's all being made bad on purpose. It's just mind-boggling. Um, anyway, sorry. Back to the egregore. So the first issue was: does anybody think they don't exist? The whole society is set up for energy harvesting. Okay, we don't know exactly how it happens, but this is how the knot milk in some way finds sustenance. Of course. Two, of course, it would identify, or whatever the egregore, identify those that are going to work with it, those that are going to bow down before it, those that freely, if it's a real spiritual being, drop all the armor and say, like welcoming in a demon, and those that it would know, those that are not that the person in the fraternity is going to know that there's an egregore associated with the fraternity, are going to fight it, but know that it's a real, ass-kicking spiritual being it's not gonna completely bow down before it. And I think, in terms of the fraternity example yesterday, would probably mostly leave those people alone. Would try to, it's gonna do what it can to bring them down indirectly by throwing the big parties, by bringing forth a distraction. One of the main reasons it's not Nelk's one of its main tools, or the main tool, its original tool, is distraction, because it can't pick the good people up and throw them in the back of the trunk or in the back of the flatbed El Camino. It just can't pick them. They have to do it to themselves. So how do you get to real strong spiritual beings? Well, here's the distraction. It's just like putting a hook, or a worm on a hook, or a lure in a water to fish. It's completely up to the fish if they're going to take the bite. And that's how these egregores, or whatever, but parts of yesterday's video, or the knot milk, has to deal with a certain type, in my opinion, of a real spiritual being. Cannot just throw them in the trunk. This distraction has to be put out there. The temptation, the addiction, whatever it may be. And there's certain lines that if this knot milk, still, it seems like, with real beings can't cross, and which is good news. But of course, a reminder as the best news of all time is, why is it trying so hard to get to us? Why is it trying so hard to get something that you have, which means that it does not have, an energy that you have? Again, there's nothing more. We don't need any more good news. This is all the good news we ever need. That energy, or whatever it's trying to get. I'm not just talking about, of course, the fraternity example yesterday. I mean, this is a little microcosm. All of Western society works this way. The world news comes on. It's trying to get something from you with its bullshit. Of course it is. I mean, it's up to you to give it. What is it? Why the energy? You produce it. You don't need to suck it from something or extract it from something. It does. It seems it can't produce certain things, certain types of sustenance on its own. It needs it from you. Well, it just kills the atheist position right there. We came from the Big Bang, through Marmot, through Monkey Man, through Darwin, and then we're just flesh. That's the case. Like, what's it working so hard to get our energy and emotion? It's so obvious. Its presentation is so obviously designed to get this out of us. Well, it's the best news of all time. We don't need no more good news. We got, it tells you, well, this is just a train stop, and we'll be here for another few trillion years. And probably never end. Just for the mind to wrap our minds around these concepts, we have to assign a number of years. It's just the limitation we have here. I mean, to me, it's more meaningful to say what's the trillion years going to be like on the after we die, than to say what's the timeless period. We just can't wrap our head around timeless. We say trillion years, even that most people can't wrap their head around how large the number 1 trillion is. We'd say a million years. It's just, yeah. What's the putting this life into perspective? What's this any sort of stress or anything bad that could happen here versus the next million or 100 million years, or again, there's probably no time outside of here. But in terms of, again, this, let's not stray too much from what I was trying to do with yesterday's video. Concept of egregore, how it's going to use certain brothers that give themselves over to it, while others it's going to try to distract, but it generally has to leave those real spirits alone. Or some of the other elements yesterday. Oh, well, here's something I wanted to talk about. Remember in yesterday's presentation how everything just kind of gets done? I didn't know how to, and there's a lot more elements. I hope I remember to talk about all the presentation in the fraternity, the evil fraternity, that relates to Western society. Tried to make parallels, of course, wherever I could, and some are very subtle. But how everything just gets done. Oh, the hot tub breaks and somebody's there the next morning, it fixed. And who called the hot tub repairman? I don't know. Just kind of gets done. There's so much in this reality. Even we, or our truth in general community, doesn't notice how artificial everything is, how unnatural. Here's one example among thousands. I guess, 45 years ago, I figured, I was doing the insurance brokerage thing, but it wasn't going well, and I figured I just have to go back and work it. I need to pay bills. You got to go sit in a corporation somewhere. I thought this was before, I had a little PayPal thing, and people sent some money here and there and able to get by, and appreciate everybody's been kind in the last 3 years or so. But before that, I figured I just have to go back and sit in a cubicle. So I started to, I had a strong resume. I was in that world before. I didn't understand how blacklisted I would be, how, the whole frequency that I produce. I knew in generally about Not Milk. I've been doing this for almost 15 years, studying reality, presenting the cake in a lake events. But I didn't realize that what we call Not Milk would extend down to like the human resources department for a little corporation down the road. That whatever negative to Not Milk, whatever negative aura I carry to it, would extend down to, but everybody. I realized via this, of course, this job hunt went nowhere. Figured I've got to go get a job to pay my bills, and I've talked about this many times. It was like I was like a disease to these, which was great. Which, of course, at the time I was a little bummed, like, how am I going to pay my bills? But now, being enemy number one, or being completely blacklisted, or the few times I had a good conversation, they would do a background check. And of course, whatever the Chinese social credit score exists here, I would get probably all Fs, however that would come up, and immediately I'd be eliminated. I said, well, didn't we have a good conversation? And I told the woman at the temp, I was ready. I was needing to do a temp job. I figured I'll get in that way about 4 years ago. And she wouldn't return my calls. Well, now, of course, if that's the best news of all time. If you're not compatible with that system, and it's beyond, if you're enemy number one to that system, well, that's the best badge of whatever anybody's ever gotten. But, I didn't quite realize it at the time. So what I was going to say was, and sorry to be so long-winded, when I was looking for, I went on to different phases. Well, I'm going to find the local corporations around here. Again, guys, it's like, I want to be clear. Matt, you want to work for a corporation? I 4 years ago or so, I would have had to sell the house. I was using whatever little was left in my 401k with penalty to pay bills. I had no choice. And I couldn't, go get a construction job. I can't. The tennis elbow, the damn carpal. Even out here, like working on the stove, I can work for 2 or 3 days and the body starts to, I can work hard for 3. I can't do that. Am I 53 at this point? So I can't get a construction job. even though I'm relatively skilled in certain things. So this was my only option. Anyway, so I figured I'd map out all these corporations around here, and I'd forget the Indeed and all this. I'd try to see what they're posting for and try to go directly to them for them to look at my resume. But here's the point, and I'm sorry, very long-winded, that like let's say I'd come across 5 companies, and there's all these corporate parks all over the place. It's all redundant, and like many people say, it is all like a Potemkin village. It just doesn't make any sense. But 2 out of 4 or 2 out of 5 companies around here were either drug or tech. And I was, as I was mapping all these and saying, okay, I'll send my resume here. Just map all these corporate parks. Okay, who's in this corporate park? Map drug company, generic drug company, biotech. It's all the same. Biotech, drug, tech, computer, tech, cloud. 2 out of 4. 2 out of 5 just doesn't seem right. I think it could have been more than half. It was just the amount of tech and drugs, and I just went, this is just so unnatural. Like, it's a Potemkin village in some. There's no way. Yeah, how many people are taking all these drugs or all these drugs in phase 2 or phase 3? It's like the knot milk literally just keeps them going, creates money in motion, or it has to have people working. There's so much redundancy. And the other was tech. What's all this tech for? I mean, everybody sits down. They either have Apple or they have Windows, and the internet. And what is all? It's like it, but it shows up in the AI. There's so many hundreds of companies over the last, say, 4 years or 3 or 4 years working on AI. Only 1 or 2% are going to do anything big like OpenAI and become a big name. But the knot milk supports all the other companies. Will throw hundreds of millions of dollars at not all of them collectively, at each one of them. Just figuring that from the knot milk's perspective, there's no issue with money. It can create through its Fed, through its treasury, etc. It can create and print up electronically whatever it wants. So if this little tech company or this little AI company can do one little thing to help move the ship forward, then from the knot milk's perspective, why not throw hundreds of millions of dollars at it? There's no issue with the money. It just creates it and presents it over. The only thing it has to worry about is eventual inflation effect, which is happening because it's doled money out in so many different places. It probably throws trillions out a month off books. But it's a bad. I mean, it's a good example, but I don't mean to stray too much. It just shows how remember back to when I was trying to look for these jobs. All these biotechs, all these tech companies around here, I just kept thinking, what are they all doing? If I got a job anywhere, what's the product and who's buying it? And it just didn't make any sense. It still doesn't make any sense. Well, from one sense, it is not milk artificial, but somebody's got to be buying their product. They're not all the upper management just saying, oh, we'll keep this quiet. All of our workers think we're actually selling something and we're not. And it's all a complete Potemkin village. I don't like that term, but like a false front. It's that movie with Seth Rogen where they went to North Korea or something like that. The Dictate. That's the Dictator is Borat. But they had a false all the storefronts. There were no stores. It just looked like there were stores. So that's most of the business world, but somehow it's beyond that. It's like a supernatural thing. They are really selling product, but who's buying it? It just doesn't. Again, back to when I was looking, it just tech, biotech, pharma, biotech. Oh, this company sells lumber. Okay, this company sells concrete. Tech. I was like, what? How? And this isn't known as some Silicon Valley East around here. It's all like that. How? Anyway, we'll never understand it. We don't have to. But boy, in a very long way, relating that back to the hot tub repairman, and things just get done. And I'm sorry for being so long-winded. How many things around the fraternity? Oh, there's a roof leak, but there's a guy fixing it already. How? How did that happen? And the brothers go, I don't know. They rationalize it. The alumni have ways to do this, and our insurance adjusters stay on top of the claims. They won't really know, the brothers at the fraternity in yesterday's video, how this is done. And it's the same with there's so many facets of our society that even you and I, or our truth research community, doesn't notice. And I wouldn't have noticed it either if I wasn't trying to put resumes out. And it was like tech, biotech, again, tech, biotech, and pharma. There's just no way. There was enough pharma and tech. Like, if this was all there was around here, there was no Silicon Valley. There was no, Columbus, Ohio is becoming a technological center. If these other, Raleigh, North Carolina, right? If that didn't exist, there'd be enough just around here for the world. It's just impossible. There's so many reality breakdowns when we really look at things closely. Most of the world is a reality breakdown. Almost everything doesn't hold up when you examine it closely, and I mean almost everything. You just get to a point pretty quickly where you go, that just how it bridged, or how it jumped from here to here, it doesn't make any sense. Whether you examine, again, local businesses, the economy, how certain stores are staying open, I mean, whatever it may be, how people don't notice that political themes repeat decade after decade after decade, and they'll just still go vote. And then I was watching The Aviator not too long ago. It was he's Howard Hughes. He's dating oh gosh, I can't even remember the name of the damn actress. You know what I'm talking about. She says, "It's your sacred franchise," or whatever. She's supposed to be Katharine Hepburn. Yeah, she's supposed to be. Kate Blanchett is supposed to be. And they'll work it in wherever they can. You didn't vote. It's your sacred franchise. Oh, and everybody watching is, oh, that's right. I got to make sure I vote too. Oh boy, talk about giving over your energy to the egregore. What do you think the egregore is behind the presidential vote in the United States? And it's like it starves for years, but then on that day, well, there's the campaigning and everything leading up. But let's just, in that day, what's presented before it is a buffet 5 miles long of this, full of mac and cheese and wings and ribs, and it eats. It's like, well, you hear they say crocodiles, they can eat one of those big antelope things or whatever, don't need to eat for like 9 or 12 months. That's like the egregore for the presidential vote. It eats, and then it goes dormant it doesn't ever go dormant, but it goes for the next vote, for that next buffet opportunity. Other egregores in this society eat daily, like the Department of Motor Vehicles, and the stress it creates for the people as they go. I was like, I was going to see, every time I'm going to say a number, oh God forbid, there's somebody got the gematria. If you trying to wait on every time I say a number, trying to calculate the gematria, you have issues. You need to seek some sort of help. B200. There's no, but the B is the 2, and that's the 22, Matt, at the DMV. B2, and I told you what happened. It's always stressful. I was B200, so I forget the number. But I was up next. The person went on some sort of break for the B line, and the other people from the DMV came over, and they just start chatting, and I'm like, look, let's give these people a break, Matt. This job, you want to be in here all day, they probably go home, they have a family, they're not aware how they're serving not milk. Maybe they're just taking their 15 minutes every 3 hours and want to talk about the good Star Wars movie they saw, whatever. Leave them alone. We can do, we can wait 10 more minutes. Of course, when I was up next, I'm not kidding. The person went on break. It was the line I was in. I think there's others that could take the B's, but I don't know. It was right there. And I'm like, okay. Anyway, it's just the whole, this is just, the egregore, the point of me saying this even, was at that moment, if there is an egregore associated with the Department of Motor Vehicles, and it works like this. And at each lower level, there's something to harvest energy or stress or anger. At that point, I could either roll my eyes and come on, taking it, or I could say, okay, not gonna give it what it wants. Anybody that, I don't go out in the world much. I make videos and I go stack bricks or whatever. But if you're out in the world, so many opportunities for you to give over what it wants, or you to learn, waiting in line at the Starbucks or wherever you are, that this is going to piss me off. And eventually you will get to where you don't have to work at it each time, where you just won't give it any energy. And in a way, I'm probably doing myself a disservice by not engaging with the world very much, because I don't learn these techniques in real practice out. Somebody that, like my stepfather, he was a claim adjuster for insurance for 40 years. He had to drive to, somebody had a fire and it burnt part of the roof, and he had to go drive out and sit in traffic and then climb up on the roof and deal with the people. They're like, when do I get my money? I want my money. It's like, just deal with everything all day long. And then there was a water claim over here, and he has to tell them, because it's a flood, there's no payment from the insurance company. And then they yell and bitch at him. And then, that's the opposite. Come on, man. Oh, gosh. It's that company you put a resume into. They finally want you because they know you won't take it. Anyway, guys, how long has this been going? A long time, huh? So is there anything else about yesterday's video I wanted to talk about? This was more the important part. I needed to stress, like, how everything just gets done. Everything's just fixed. The brothers don't notice. And there's so much in this reality that's like that, where if you really dive into it, it breaks down. It doesn't make any sense. And I'm sorry to keep repeating the example about the tech companies, but that was just the best example I could come up with. There's so many things about how this, nobody sees, nobody around us, like our cousins or our friends, would never use the words reality breakdown. Those in the ship of fools are never going to see it the way we do. But even those even those in our truth community, because we don't get close enough to it or don't look far enough in the weeds, where it will start to break down. We just assume it just makes sense how this must happen or that must happen. Where what I'm saying is, if almost everything, if you examine it closely, will break down. There's just, could do a whole YouTube channel on nothing but these examples. There were thousands of these examples during the V 2020. Thousands of inconsistencies where, well, it certainly doesn't look like it's a big deal because we don't know anybody that's, gone kaput. There's no governors. There's no famous athletes. So many months now, no news anchors, no weathermen, no famous rock singer. Nobody's gone kaput in each category. Well, zero as well. But then all these stories come out of Italy, about the respirators and all. Well, how? Okay, the first grade truther, the reaction is, oh, it's all Matt, it's all made up. But if you get close enough to it, well, how? News story after news story. So the entire, we get into the similar things we got into with the Las Vegas event. So all the different hospital groups in Italy, they're all in on it. They're all in the know, and it's all being kept. It breaks down. Okay, I was going to say I struggle with this, but I struggle, I guess, why so many people push back on me about where I get into the realm or the terms reality breakdown maybe too quickly. But to the first grade truther, it's all, you don't know what the secret societies can do, Matt. All those hospitals, they're all faking it. It didn't make sense. And again, this happens so often where if you get close to it, it just something, reality presents something that just doesn't hold water, doesn't make any sense. Like, I wouldn't have known half the companies around here are biotech, pharma, or tech if I wouldn't have done that exercise. Just drive by the corporate parks. I don't know, just all these corporations. What are they all? It's just endless corporate parks just here. If this is what all there was, and the rest of the United States was just farmland, it would still be more than enough for the whole United States. Like, what are all these? Okay, there's 5 companies in in this building, building D of the office park, and there's building A, B, C of the office park. What are they all? Well, I know they're all empty, right? Well, let's just say 5 or 6 years ago. What are they all doing? What are they all selling? And we know the major brands like Levi's jeans and Nike, and we need food, and that's mostly from a few corporations like Cargill and ADM. What are all these corporations and office parks doing? It is a reality breakdown to me. It's more so a reality break because you get in there and they're not all just sitting around faking to work. They sell something that somebody buys, but it's all redundant. Okay, I'm not sure how much of that came out. This is probably way more all over the place than you're used to from me, but I just wanted to do a little recap on yesterday's video, explain a few things, and I think most of you agree that whatever the analogy was, it worked. But I do have to pull it out of the book. The book's just, I know some people said leave it in. It is too long. This is too long, and I've got to pull 40 or 50 more pages out before I can get the PDF ready to send out to whoever wants it. Matt, are you going to print it and sell it? No. I'm going to put it on Amazon where there's probably some fine print that they own everything you give it, so they could just basically come to me and say, you said you weren't a robot, you clicked on this, you clicked on that, we own it, and we're going to remove it. No one's going to buy it, and if you go sell it on your own, we own it now, and you can't do that. I mean, I'm not going to get involved with Amazon, or I'm not going to go try to raise money and print up a bunch of books, and I'll just send it out via PDF. And just like last time, if you wanted, that's why I want to keep it. It was so expensive the last time. People would go to Lulu, whatever was it called, Lulu book printing online, and it was the other book was so massive, it was like $40 for somebody, $40 for somebody to print it out and get it bound and sent to them. So trying to keep this one smaller, so if somebody wants to send it to one of these online, they can bind it and make a book themselves, however they want to do that, or whatever size font they need. I don't want to make any money from this book. Hardcore truth as to an interpretation is how reality works and our spiritual place in it. I don't want to attach money to that. At least that. Here I appreciate people are kind from time to time, so I can pay bills, but with that, no. I'll just PDF it out to anybody that wants it. It's just because I'm not doing as much in the book. It's hard to keep going because making videos before, a whole video a week was the book. So I was spending the whole day, usually Monday was no video, do hours and hours on Monday preparing for Tuesday's book chapter. That way the book was getting done. Where now it's like, I don't know, like Mondays now, I was so burnt out on the book, I'm like just like stacking bricks or whatever I'm doing, making stove designs, or just trying to completely take off. Where I need to keep putting the proofing of the book and the cleaning up and correcting spelling mistakes and things like that, so I can get it out to you guys. So let me just put a timeline out on it for it. If I don't put a time on it, I won't do it. I'll just keep ignoring it. Let's say let's say for the book, I'll shoot for July 1st to have the PDF completely done, and there's a lot of work, guys. It was very rough. What I read was there, but it was, there's a lot of things everything in that sentence, in other words, needs to be perfect for it to go out and be a book, and it was rough. So I will commit to July 1st and try to get that done. Thanks, guys.